Thank you, Deidre. Uh, Thank you so much to our honored guests. Every time we do Yakamashii, we have a wonderfully diverse audience, but we've never had one quite this big. So thank you all for taking the time. Uh, I see a lot of folks that I saw last night at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center annual dinner, at which Rachel and her husband, Justin Marks, were basically keynote speakers. And I got to talk story with them for, 20, 30 minutes, maybe. It just felt like 5 minutes. We talked about Shogun, and both Justin and Rachel offered so much insight and fascinating background info. But today, in keeping with our Yakamashii tradition, we're going to start off just talking with Rachel, the Maui girl. And then later on, if there's time and if the conversation flows that way, and then we'll talk more about Shogun, because there's so many more questions and things that I have to ask about that. But let's get started right away. So Yakamashii, I think most of you know, but for those who don't, are not familiar with the word, is a Japanese word meaning what, noisy, boisterous, right? But for those of us Nisei, Sansei kids who grew up in Hawaii, and not just those of Japanese ancestry, but all local kids of a certain age, we all learned the word Yakamashii. Yakamashii is in the pidgin vocabulary. We thought it meant shut up, quiet up, because our parents, our elders, our teachers would almost daily reach a point where they'd call out, Yakamashii! And they only look like them. I thought it was my middle name. As Deidre said, Rachel, you are just so gracious, humble, and so sweet. I can't imagine that you ever heard Yakamashii yelled at you growing up. Did you?
That would come later. I've saved my rebellion for my later years.
Well, Rachel's mom is sitting right there, Eleanor. And as soon as Eleanor and I had the pleasure of working together at Konoha Senior Services for a while. And I never connected once Shogun came out and all these awards, and I knew Rachel Kondo was a Maui girl, but I never even put the two together because her mom is also humble and gracious and is not the type of thing. That's my daughter, you know. And then it was when you emailed and said, "Oh, your mom remembers working." And I went, duh. But it's easy for me to see how you became this gracious, wonderful woman that you are. Because you did that. You know. So thank you, Eleanor. And deal with it. So you saved your rebellion for your later years. So were you just a model child going to Pukalani school, Pukalani Elementary?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. See, I very. It's hard to go back to those years because there's been like a gap of time, geographical distance, all these things. But in moving home, which I just did a couple of years ago, I've been able to have flashes, with whip in my face, and I have run-ins with teachers, with classmates, and I'll introduce myself to some, and I'll say, "Remember, it's me, Kalamades," and some of them will just be like, "No, sorry." I'll be like, Shane, we were in the same class, and just I don't think I was very memorable, but he was. So it's been nice to kind of revisit in my mind childhood and to think about how indelibly this place has been written.
So you were born and raised here.
Oh,
So Picolani Elementary, Kalama Intermediate, Maui High School,
mhm.
and then you left for college.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty typical story. Maui girl, born here, War Memorial, like most of us, like all of us, probably all of us. And uh, grew up here, in Pukalani primarily. Did a year in Waipuku across the crest.
Middle school.
Right next to Kamanji. So I have a couple of, we can save it for later, but I have a description in one of my stories that I wrote uh, from that time of living there. So many of my childhood memories are kind of woven into things that it effervesces throughout life, and you remember and think about it, and then just weave it into things.
So it wasn't until a couple of years ago that you finally returned to live on.
Yeah. I think COVID kind of changed things for many of us. And I don't know if we could have done our work remotely the way that we do now had it not become the norm through COVID. And also things kind of shifted in my mind. My value system changed. It lived all over LA primarily, but I did my graduate school studying Texas. We lived in Berlin, Vancouver. We'd done a bunch of work abroad. And after COVID, after sitting in my house in LA by myself with a baby and thinking, this doesn't make sense. I don't want my baby growing up without kind of like close affinity to nature. So we finished up Shogun and packed the bags again, and moved on.
You have two young children.
Yeah, I had the poor insight to have children during
While you were doing children. Was that a large factor in your decision to return home?
Oh, I think
Your children grow up on Maui
yeah, and having
with
grandparents.
families close. Where are Justin's family?
Oh, so Justin was born in Texas, but raised in New York, just outside the city. So he, I thought that the adjustment would be tough for him. It's actually been a little bit unusual for me. It's just tricky to be home and to encounter, there's certain things that have changed entirely and some things have changed not at all. So, but he is one time. He's practicing shaka. He's like really long fingers, and he's just like, it's just a little off. So we practice, we talk about it. Yeah.
You are both award-winning writers, you and Justin. Did you always want to write from childhood?
I don't think so. I think that I didn't know any writers growing up. I think like most writers, the thing that drew me to it was reading. And reading is the thing that, explodes the mind. And one of my favorite places to go after school, at Maui High School, was the Kahui Library. And I went there. I could still see the path. I went to the same stack. And I always went to the same row because that was the row that had all the historical romances. So I was not reading literature, let's just be honest. If there was a young woman on the cover who was like windswept and vaguely distressed, and she's wearing a calico dress that was a little torn at the bottom, then I for sure read that book, like for sure.
There was a guy on the
in the back,
distance.
in the way back, just looking out. I read that book, and I devoured those. And it's funny because with Shogun, I thought being Japanese or Japanese heritage was what I meant to the writing, and it was not that, because as we discussed last night, I'm Japanese American, born in Hawaii, it's a very different thing. The thing that really helped the writing, what are these books? These silly books, where they speak and, it's all this costume drama and palace intrigue and, all the older language and the cadence of that older language was what really, I guess, kind of settled into my, being. So I can whip out any scene that's a little bit antiquated and a little, any day of it. It's my weird skill.
Because that is such a big part of the series. Uh, The romance, the relationships, and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were preparing way back then.
Oh yeah. And who would have thought? I feel sometimes I think back to the librarian who was there. He must have been like, stacks of historical romance novels just every week, just checking out the books. Like, the 16-year-old is odd.
Oh, I'm sure he was pleased to have a
reader
in there checking out books.
Sure.
Yeah. Because we used to say, we're going to the library, and then it was over to Terry Queen.
Oh,
French God. So at what point did you find writing as a passion? It must be a passion for you because you're doing so.
Thank you. I think so. I had a meandering path after high school, went to get my undergraduate degree in journalism, but it was kind of at a rough moment in history to get a journalism degree where everything was transferring to the internet. And I had just gotten an email address, and I thought, I don't know how I learned old print journalism. So, I don't know. I just kind of fell into various jobs here and there. I've been for a long time. I think I knew that it was so amazing to be a writer, but like set path. There's no way to know how to do it. And I certainly didn't know anybody who did that. So, just live your life and get your jobs and pay off your student loans. And I eventually did move to LA. A friend of my mom, she had a son who said I could rent his kitchen nook for $200 a month. And I thought, oh, expensive, $200. And it was so small that my twin mattress couldn't even lay flat. It was octagonal shaped, and so it was just the mattress was like this. So yeah, I did that, and I somehow got a job at this big agency called CAA, Creative Artist Agency. Yeah, just this little agency. I didn't even know what it was, and nobody could believe that I had gotten the job. My first day, I had many of the assistants who were working there saying, yeah, we did not expect me to choose you, or you were my last choice. Their first assistant, she's like, look, I'm just going to tell you honestly, you were my last choice. And I thought, but then it was actually good. It kind of like, toughened me up a little bit, but it was the worst year of my life, or one of actually my worst year, the worst year of my life up until that. Because, life gets tough. But I did that. That was my introduction to just the world of Hollywood. And eventually I met this young up and coming screenwriter named Justin Marks. And he was one of those just like, I'm 8 years old. I already need to choose my career. I'm going to become a screenwriter, and I'm going to read screenplays, and I'm going to do this. And he went to Columbia University and got a manager, and he came out to LA, got an agent, sold his first script by 25 years old. And then I met him, and I've been rolling my eyes ever since. Who does that, right? I mean, my path has been like that. So yeah, he's a beeliner, and I am a bee, pollinating other flowers.
So you complement each other so well.
Maybe. Sometime.
We touched on this last night. This is the first time that the two of you are working together on a project like this. Oh. And as Justin said, possibly the last time.
Oh, yeah.
But I know you're dope.
Well, now he can't do without. No. Yeah, the first script we ever wrote together was the first anything we ever wrote together was the first episode of Shogun. I had never written a script before, and I thought, later, I write short fiction. How hard could it be? You know, it's kind of hard. And I was also pregnant, and we sat down and it's like, okay, this is how you do it. You're going to take these scenes, and I'm going to take these scenes. I said, got it. And I sat there watching him, and that annoying sound of like just like writing. And I was kind of just browsing the internet and how to write in first thing. And I just kept taking breaks. I was like, for 20 minutes, get a snack. Just like, where's your work ethic? Like work. And oh. So we have very different ways of writing too. So we all these years later, we now got it down to the side.
Yeah, the finished product. Yeah. Yeah. So as a child, you didn't make up little stories. You never wrote fiction as a kid.
Did I? I don't know.
You did. Just don't remember.
I don't remember, but I do remember. I think my only asset as a writer was my memory. I have any visceral experience I hold on to. And so I have memories of growing up on Mill Street. Those little things that have those little flowers. I would think those are my lipstick. I would just, all these little things, sensorial type details. And that I hold on to. So even if I wasn't actually physically telling stories and writing them down, I think my mind was populating with, and that's what stories are.
Oh, this seems like a good time to hear your recollection of
Oh yeah. Okay. So I've never been prepared ever in my whole life. And I was so proud of myself. I told my friend Christina, who grew up with me in Hawaii. And she flew in from the Big Island. It's so nice to have her. Yesterday was her birthday, and she spent her birthday at the dinner. I said to her this morning, I said, I had a thought. I'm going to bring a prop. I'm going to bring something. And I thought, I'm so proud of myself. The reason why what I wanted to read was, when I first applied to graduate school, I thought, who's going to take someone like, I grew up just like a normal kid on Maui. My stories are just these little tiny stories. And I was applying to like the best schools. And I don't know how I had the audacity to do that, but I did. And my application, in my application, they require a personal statement. And so I thought I would put paragraph, my personal statement, as it turns out I wanted to give, just a regular girl personality. Because my personal statement, 3 little paragraphs. I believe stories are born of such feelings of smallness. Indeed, the masters I look to, William Trevor, Eudora Welty, Alice Munro, Flannery O'Connor, Nicola Curie, Anton Chekhov, Marilyn Robinson, Annie Proulx, they reveal world upon world in their examination of the quiet life. In a 2008 essay in Tin House, writer Nick Lee discusses with deep admiration for William Trevor and what she exalts as village literature. Perhaps because I was an island girl, I feel confined to my own personal adventure. And yet I believe it is from village stories that we recognize the small secrets and quiet tragedies that add up to the mystery of our existence. My exposure to culture was through the people of my village. On the street where I lived, in Kukulani, there was Alfred, an elderly Portuguese man whose lawn featured a statue of Mary wearing a tuberose lei. In the Baptist minister's yard, Mr. Kaneshiro, sat a 20-passenger van on its deflated haunches like an obedient elephant. Further down the road was Mr. Ishiguro, who at 5 o'clock every day fired up his furo, and Mrs. Ogasawara, she delivered undead to each of us in brown paper bags splotched with oil. 2 houses up from mine was Kapuna Maxwell, a Hawaiian activist whose chanting we heard on the wind, much like the peacocks on our roofs overhead. And finally, at the end of the street, the edge of the sugarcane field was my house. And so who would have thought that just describing the street that I grew up on would lend me access to one of the best writing programs in the world. And 5 writers are chosen out of all their applications, and I was one of them. And sometimes I think, wow, how and why, but it happened. So I just wanted to share that little insight that, we all have these incredible stories, and it's such a special place to put them here, and to tell those stories, and to keep, to keep supporting places like this that support stories.
It is a very special place, but your description of it just looks good. I think it's a beautiful picture, and for those of us who know Maui, it's like, oh, yeah. But your description is with me. And never see it, never have the great fortune to grow up in a place such as that. You know, each of them is the game, they call little things about it. If you're this little man, can you share a couple of the most enjoyable moments from before you started doing this? Like small kid, not about the
Yeah. I think about my Japanese grandmother in the ice cream plastic. I think about the mirror. I guess it was maybe an 80s thing, that thing, but she would have to the wall with her child colors with the gold flexing them. I remember the little blue stool she sat on that was full like this, and every night she would put on her face. I remember going to my mother's house, her parents' house up in Big and we would drive by the Baldwin State and and I wrote a story about that exact house, imagining my grandmother, my mother's mother, selling Avon as she did. I wrote stories like that. I remember going to her house and playing with the gun with my hands, the ditch behind the house. Well, we just, I mean, we just do it and it lasts. I remember, my grandparents, my grandfather would go, I guess he would go swimming for octopus to kill them. I don't octopus now, but so smart. She's so documentary. Oh, anyway, eating up the octopus and stuff. Yeah, I remember my grandparents dying and having their services at the Nakamura's. I remember the food. I always these little at it. No, my grandmother. No, my Japanese grandmother did it. Yeah. But I do remember food. Oh, I remember the type of drama. That's the remember the single plastic thing.
Oh, yeah. Still there.
Still there. Still perfectly spongy. Love it.
One piece. You make mini piece.
Oh,
yeah.
That's convenient. It is better just for a taste. Yeah, you don't take the whole thing.
Now you can have lunch and a mini piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I remember walking streets of Old Red River, went to Old Woods, and then I think,
With the candy inside, the little Japanese bead candies inside the handle of the cake.
That's right. Oh my, how times have changed. And now my daughters are like, give me that Peppa Pig. And I'm like, dude, we had pinwheels. You know? I'm sure you guys had what? I don't know.
I'm so old. We have to make our own. I do remember making pinwheels. Where like origami paper.
Oh,
At the slit, and we have to toss it. And you're in the disposable.
yeah.
And you take a pen, hold it in, put it in.
Oh, there you go. There's your toy for 2 years.
So your family, um, where are you in the order? You're not the oldest.
No, I have an older brother and a younger sister. So I am your classic, delightful middle child. Yeah. My brother is 2.5 years older and my sister's 3 years younger.
Were you close to her?
I think so.
Pretty good. It's not too wide a gap.
Yeah.
It's not so close that, very close.
Yeah. Yeah. I could pretend like I was smarter than my sister. And my brother, distance from me. So it's hard.
Recently, both the HON and published article about your brother and his health.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling Kathy earlier, she was so kind to ask me, we were speaking about this, and I told her I love talking to my brother. He is a former Maui high school teacher. Taught there for 22 years. Whatnot. And he was born with muscular dystrophy. And so for my whole life, I grew up knowing that this was a special challenge. And we didn't know much about it back then, what kind of MD had. He would learn that later, but it affects his the muscle, it affects his heart. And so he was told in his 20s that he would need a heart transplant. So that's always been in the back of my mind, and I think I became a writer because of my brother. I think his experience taught me to place myself in another place and to consider what that would be like and to find a description for that person and to characterize struggle and watching what he's gone through is kind of like the height of if my whole life, my heart has been softening for him and because of him, I feel like the last year and a half at this point, our hearts have been like tenderized by this experience. And my brother is now kind of the disease is progressed and he suffered 4 strokes or 2 strokes, 2 brain injuries, and he's now confined to a wheelchair and he has lost his ability to speak, but not to think or feel. Still shows up for us. Shows up for him. And his wife, Crystal, are still at it. They're still at his life. Kids, they are resilient and strong. And so if you see him around, he loves to connect with people. In fact, before he went up to the mainland when he was still on the transplant list, I asked him, I said, what do you think you'll miss the most? Because he thought he would be on Maui or away from Maui for a year or 2 plus. I said, what do you think you're going to miss the most about Maui? That he said, oh, easy. I'm going to miss going to poop soup and having to talk to everybody. I'm going to miss going, going to, just listed all these places, goody goody. He's like the ultimate, goody goody monster. He loved going places and always knowing something or somebody always knowing there. Because to him, that is what makes life meaningful. And it's true. And so if you see him motoring around, please say hello. You got it? Strawberry or pineapple? Oh, good question. I don't know. Strawberry. That's a good question.
It's very important.
Yeah,
I think it's like a personality there.
Yeah.
Strawberry, pineapple, or me.
You know what? Justin found last night for sure pineapple spicy personality.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
oh, that's just
Oh yeah, not my Justin.
Yeah.
My Justin is more like maybe vanilla. Oh, just kidding. Don't tell him.
No, I'll bet your Justin is too sweet strawberry.
Okay, I'll ask him. Yeah, maybe I'm strawberry and
And they haven't had Aussie bean forever. So
oh
that doesn't count, but
Justin.
his ears are burning out. Both Justin. For those who weren't at the dinner last night, Justin and Anita was just delightful and spoke. They went up and investigated spicy. In fact, he told us all that he thought we just be a little spicy, or that the spiciness was wearing off on the living.
Look on your face.
It was. So that's your older brother, and they're on Maui now.
They are in Waikiki, and they live on a great street, and it's such a cool street. I mean, the street we renovated his house so that it could be a big client. I thought, oh, it's so much work. We'll find a house that is going to be big, right? We'll do that. But in renovating the house, I realized the street comes alive. And it's just like bike games or kids going by. They all know each other. Some of them talk, some of them don't, and it's just boys, girls, just everybody's out. It's wonderful. I thought, oh, that's how I grew up too. It's perfect.
And your younger sister, is she on Maui?
No, she is lost to Indiana. I say dramatically. she lives in Indiana.
Good team.
I know. We gotta bring her home. I'm working on it. She has twin boys who are 11 and 12, so she's very good with that.
She the parents with love.
I know.
But mom must decide herself if you returning, getting to do this.
I hope so. I'm sure it was a lot. I mean, we came back with an 18-month-old and a not even 3-year-old. And, we'd moved 6 times in 2 years. So these babies were not exactly. So here, enjoy.
Shogun was a more than 5-year process for Justin. And your children are 3 and 5 now.
Yeah.
So you went to 2 pregnancies.
Well, 3 births, including Shogun.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't, again, as I mentioned, it was not my best plan or timing. Life, that's life just comes and just gotta go with it. And I think I was remarking to Tina last night about, what was I thinking? So psycho of me to do that, but just kind of gotta run with the opportunity, I guess. And as we were talking last night, Shogun was something that I think back to the moment when I was like, just try, Justin. He really didn't want to do it. He was trying to be very sensitive to the fact that he he looks more Richard Chamberlain with less muscles than he does, North Canada. So, he wanted to be sensitive, which I appreciate, but I don't know what that thing was in me. I never written a script. I'm not in that world. I was writing short fiction to say, oh, try it out. Maybe, it would be. And we had no idea. We were in our 30s. We had no children. We were living vibrant lives in LA. So young and free um, we had no idea what we were getting into. No clue that we would be responsible for $230 million.
And it probably didn't even enter your mind that you would end up in 18 states.
Oh,
I'm sure, having met Justin and getting a little taste of who's you're doing, I'm sure that both of you, once you committed to the project, intended to create something of quality. But did it surprise you at how well it turns out? It's just get kind of think about um, it's my father. The amount of detail that every bit of it. Like so last night, this is something I never would have thought of, so I had to go back and watch a little bit more of one of the episodes because Rachel shared how just so detail oriented. The subtitle, right down to choosing the color and font. And the placement, I think that makes sense, but the font and the shading of color and the length of what's on screen, every frame has been sparkle. And so it's
yeah, you want to slow it down and help your audience out. You're going to ask a lot of your audience and you need to give them a lot too. More things.
It's did you ever reach a point because as they explained last night, they write it in English and then they send it off to translators, but this is 17th century and they wanted to be true to the time period. So the translation was not simply going to be able to get and get it back. But once you had the dialogue and then your Japanese actors, they, likely do not be word for word. So then when it's back in the subtitling, it wasn't just a matter of, okay, you translate the script. It was so much more than that.
Yeah. Let me give you an example of the process took years to build. And so we started, what we ended up with and what you read on screen, and just hours. But I love to take this example because it kind of demonstrates exactly what the benefit is to really invest in this kind of process building and find the right process to do this. In episode 1, there is a moment which Lord Tornado speaks to Monica and asks her if her faith would conflict with her duty to him. And I remember writing that she wrote, or she said, it does not, because I am more than one thing. And I thought, what a great line. All these years, what a great line. And come to find out, it wasn't the best line. After all that, it went to the translators, back to Eriko Miyagawa, Hiroyuki Sanada, to the playwright, to our actors. Our actors, they added their plan, and then we perform it, right? And then we retranslated it. And the editors, we translated that line to, it does not conflict because I have more than one part. And I thought, oh my God, that is, we could have never in 1,000 written. And it's because the process was built in order to support that translation And
Well, as you said last time, language is complex.
language is a culture.
And there's so many moments like that uh, that were just, I don't think we did it.
Sometimes we pause to fight a little bit again.
Yeah.
I told you, you should have included.
Was there ever a point during that those 5 years of the creative process where you got dug up or close to burning out?
I mean, I don't know how dark it is to go, but we lived in Vancouver. It was like a 2 month long winter, and shot with, the sleet, the sludge, the rain, the hail, it was, and Justin did more of it because I'm sorry, I was breastfeeding. I was home breastfeeding at night. But he was in all night shoots, and it was so hard that we have purposely had to just forget about it to try again. But there were moments where I would be breastfeeding the baby after having worked for 14 hours, trying to get some sleep so I could make a 6 a.m. call. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's 4. Like, oh, it got dark. It was really long. It was really hard. And it was really taxing because, again, this was during COVID. So we had COVID police on set wearing their little vests, and we went to test 3-4 times a week. We had to double mask from the second go on set to when we went home. So we were double masked for 12, 14, 16 hours a day. We were not allowed to recognize. So we had no outings, we had no weekends, we had no nothing. You were just, you worked and you slept, you worked, you slept. And that's just the world that it was back then. And it's wild to think how it wasn't that long ago and how different it is. But I would love to talk about COVID these days with the positive spin, which is that it really did produce a atmosphere which there's so many limitations at every turn that we had to come up with new creative ways to shoot the scene or to find our way out of this predicament. And so I think that challenges are really important to the creative process. It's fantastic.
If not for COVID, if you hadn't gone through COVID, that your finished product would have been much different.
I do. I really believe that because COVID also allowed us to pause. And Justin talked about the trials of faces last night on the screen where he thought, oh, we're prepping this show remotely because COVID hit. Why do these faces need to be from LA or Vancouver? Why can't they be from Japan? And we decided to only hire department heads primarily out of Japan, or all of our consultants, of course, were out of Japan, and experts on wig design, OBs, and all these things were all out of Japan. And we thought, how could we have known to do that? The norm is so the opposite. And then the other thing that COVID lent us was time. We had 1 year of sitting there with the scripts, like, how else can we make this better? So we hired a Japanese consultant to turn pages with us. And beautiful. Because she'd be like, a Japanese person wouldn't even think this thought, let alone speak this thought. And I was like, oh, you gotta start over, And it was so good. She challenged us to say, no, listen to, I am born, raised, speak Japanese, raised in Japan, like, listen to how we can practice. And to Justin's credit, he was not only listening to it, was hungry for it.
That's wonderful. Yeah. They incredible master. Now you're going to talk about this
They're not. That's the problem.
And there's no Emma Stone.
I know. Oh, she's around for me in my WhatsApp.
Yeah. And I told myself, don't forget about the fact that.
You'll find out. But I will touch upon briefly. I know our time is getting short, but I'll briefly touch upon the wildness that was the award season
Oh,
because I mean, talk about not knowing anything, right? We just finished the award circuit last month. We went to LA every weekend in February, and it was difficult doing it from here because it's a fly so often and be away from home for so long. But it was wild. We kept. I mean, not. I don't. It doesn't come off, but like my office floor, there's just so many awards that they're just like on the ground. My daughter just shit at school, and I'm like, oh, don't drop it. It's so heavy. And it was just so shocking. And I think it's not a testament. Honestly, it's not a testament to anything we did. It's a testament for how hungry people are for this kind of story, And people want to travel for TV. They want to go places and to worlds they've never been to. And I was so heartened to learn that people responded to these actors, right? So amazing actors. And good job, Justin. He demanded that we hire Japanese actors for their skill, not because they could also, and that was, he wanted the pool to be large. He wanted to choose from the large. And so it's just wild. And talk about, being up there or one day being in our Loa at Burns, like looking for our tortoise. Like, oh, such a bad tortoise. It just keeps escaping. And then the next day we fly to LA and we're like on the stage for the Golden Globes. And, Emma Stone is sitting there, or Meryl Streep, Harrison Ford, and it's wild. It's like, little mountain, like, I can Bugatti. I mean, like, it's so crazy. Anyway.
that's beautiful. If you consider it a testament to the hunger and the
Absolutely.
story we're learning. But it's very much a testament to your it should have want to be more than just make fun of it.
It's all Justin. It's Justin. His bar of, I didn't know how to do it. So his bar of excellence, super annoying, but it's high. So it's all Justin. Yeah.
And then it's the tango. It is enough that he is Lord getting up. You get the feeling watching after just the first couple of episodes. Like, I bet this man is just crazy. Oh,
yeah. It's hard to separate.
I think that he's an executive producer, and he also assisted with translation.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Really,
he was
the script itself.
Oh yeah, he was the heart and soul, I think, of the whole project. That felt so much responsibility for it, and he felt responsible for the younger to say, kept telling them it took him 25 years or his whole life in Japan, 25 years in Hollywood, trying to get a role like this. Says he kept saying, "I want your path to be shorter, and your path to be less difficult." And that says it all about him. But this guy, he would show up, put on Lord Tornado outfit. That's heavy, okay? That's heavy. And then he would, do his acting, and then he would run behind the camera. We had a special stool for him so he could still sit, in his Lord Tornado way, but he would study the scene. And he had things, he would say things like, using the sound editing room afterwards, he would say, back up. That sounds like metal coming from from a sword sheath. And he's like, we had bamboo. So you have to find the bamboo out. That would say, no, or he would say the folds on the sodas, and they were say, can't have it's this way, you want it this way. This way is, it's a like death. And so he caught every little bit. We had to flip frames around so they're full, right? Every little thing studied painstakingly. So it's so when we say for tuning in, we really mean it because he worked so hard on it.
Just amazing. So, um, I think a lot of Japanese Americans here, I know my family, uh, it's kind of, I don't know what the word is. It's kind of, it sounds self-important, but watching it as a something, I just, I was so grateful for those moments when I could immerse myself and I feel this pride in my heritage, even though I have nothing to do with not even being to Japan or Okinawa. But, my mom is that way, you know, forgive me, mom, but we talked about, like, elections. Oh, yeah. So, this is how I think. You have to be Democrat. And then after that, um, I'll put the Japanese perspective. Or when you meet Maui news and then do something about some, accused criminal. Oh, must be a mistake. Why did we do that? But at the same time, I don't know, there's a unique, strange, misguided sense of but it's pride. We feel the same way about you being a Maui girl. Even though you didn't graduate from Baldwin.
Apologies.
But I think everyone, even folks, like my mom, who has not seen a second of children, but has learned about Maui girl, like, oh, just from Maui, you, yes, yeah,
I now live Stone's mom's house.
oh, definitely. Um, thank you for letting us all be part of that and join your family and just give so much time.
Thank you so much. It is, it was incredibly moving, to be back and to know that sometimes you make unconscious choices in life, just impulsively do something. And I don't think I understood what I was doing in the home, but it, none of what, none of what I did for work or my life could have been meaningful without connection. And, nothing could be without connection. And it's only ever made meaningful when you connect with a person who has connected with you. And so in coming home, it has been the most mind-boggling thing. Spend your whole life growing up here thinking, oh, gotta get off, to go. I want to see things. I want to travel. And then you spend the rest of your life and come home. And you come home and it's just, it is so special. And so I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for keeping this place what it is. For it's still feeling like home. So, yeah. And for caring about Shogun. I mean, ultimately it's just a TV show. So thank you.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful how at so many junctures, including when you applied. Yeah. Like you said this several times, and we don't know why, but you just did. Yeah. So here you are. So
just like mine.
Like
No,
the idea.
that's right. That's right.
Thank you all for joining us. Today, Yakamashii program, as well as last night's dinner, will soon be available for viewing on the series and on the YouTube channel in the MC. Yeah, just go to YouTube and search and get the our next Yakamashii is not until August. I think I can't say who I guess will be. They don't know.
Okay.
Maybe we'll just have Rachel and Justin come every time. Now that you're on Maui. We will have Justin come.
Yeah.
I think he'll have learned his shaka by then.
Probably not. But he would be good for some Shogun site for sure.
What?
He'd love to tell you about his tractors. But yes, you're on Maui. He loves all his toys.
Tractor.
He has a tractor now. He has a little lawnmower. He has had a rough day on Shogun. I hear in the background.
Is it a push or a riding?
A riding one.
Oh,
He has a gator. He just has little toys. He just loves living. He thinks they're fun.
yeah.
He's trying.
Grateful. Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you to all of you for